Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Now, first, allow me to apologize. Someone's cutting down tree stuff and they're shredding lots of wood, so it's pretty noisy outside and it's definitely coming through the window. So if you hear it, I'm sorry. But it is Wednesday, November 21st, which makes it Thanksgiving Eve, and because of the holiday, we're getting movies a little sooner than we would normally. That's right, the Thursday preview night has now landed on Tuesday, and last night the Seaman went to the movies with his pops and saw a movie that he was eagerly anticipating to come out, was super psyched to go see, and when he walked out, felt pretty darn good about what he saw. It didn't quite reach the peaks that I wanted it to, which maybe left me a little disappointed, but ultimately, this is a really, really solid movie, a really solid sequel, and a really solid addition to an overall universe that it exists in. So pull up a chair, man, take a seat, we're getting ready to dive in, spoiler-free, on Creed 2. And like I said, I think this is a really solid entry into the Rocky universe and into the smaller Creed universe that Ryan Coogler started to build Michael B. Jordan. And it's a really solid sequel, man. It does a lot of things that you want it to do. It provides you with really great choreography, excellent action, really good drama and story stuff, and really, really solid performances all around. But by the time we get to the end, it doesn't quite hit its ultimate peak. The type of thing that, the Rocky movies would pull you out of your seat for, right? The thing that the first Creed movie pulled you out of your seat for. By the time we get to the end, you're not quite ready to jump out of your chair and burst into cheers. I was actually the only person who cheered in the theater last night at the end of the movie, whereas the first Creed, most of the theater cheered by the end of the movie. And I'm not going to knock Stephen Cable Jr. because I think he does a really, really good job in this film. But it was very apparent by the end of the movie that something that was missing was Ryan Coogler. What Ryan Coogler does behind the camera is so good, and he does a brilliant job, especially in that first Creed movie with the final fight between Adonis and Pretty Ricky Conlon, to make that just drive up the emotion in you to the point where by the end you literally have to burst. And it's the way that he shoots it, it's the way he told the story. It was the inventive and freshness of Creed, where it didn't feel, it felt like it belonged in the Rocky universe, but it didn't operate necessarily like a typical Rocky movie. All those things combined to give just this energy that needed to leave the body at the end of the movie. And Cable Jr. does a really good job here. I think he shoots this movie wonderfully. There is, in one of the fights, there is a point of view change of camera angle that I hadn't necessarily seen before, that all of a sudden made you go, oh, wow, and like you understood the speed of the gloves. It was really cool. But that little something special that Ryan Coogler brings was certainly missing, and you feel it at the end of the movie because the emotional peaks don't really reach the heights they should. Chio Hodari Coker, who was co-writer with Sly Stallone on this one, also I thought did a pretty solid job. Unfortunately, you can feel Sly's presence in the script in this one, and because of that, the movie I think becomes a little bit more Rocky formulaic and isn't quite as fresh feeling as the original Creed was. And that kind of hurts it a little bit, but the overall story that they tell and the stuff that they deliver, I thought was really, really excellent. And the first act specifically, the writing and Stephen Cable Jr. are in lockstep, and it is perfect. I mean, you want to talk about building, you want to talk about execution, you want to talk about emotional impact. The first act is flawless in that department. And there is something that it does, out of all of the formulaic things, I was like, okay, we did this, we did this, we did this. There was one moment in the first act that I went, holy cow, what? This is happening? And then all of a sudden I turned to my dad and I was like, do you understand what they're doing? They're like merging the Rocky 3 and 4 and some of 1 and 2, all of it into like one thing for Adonis to run with. And it was awesome. It really had you at a high. But when we get to the second act, there's a couple things that happen that I think hurt this movie. One, Rocky disappears for a little bit, and the thing that made that first Creed movie so good was that Rocky and Adonis relationship. Michael B. Jordan and Sly Stallone, you could just tell how much fun they had together. You could tell how much, working with Sly in a movie like this was meaning to Michael B. on screen. So when he's not there in the second act, you have a hole that you have to fill. And you fill it with a ton of story for Bianca and Adonis. And it's good. And the acting is really, really good. We'll get there. But I felt like it was a little too much story to throw on these two and a little too much to ask them to run with. To the point where I thought the second act kind of stumbled a little bit pacing-wise, and it sucked out some of the energy from the first act. But the third act certainly injects that energy back into you. You get one of the best Rocky montage scenes ever. Look, I'm not saying it's better than Rocky 4, because nothing is going to beat a Rocky 4 montage. Seeing Rocky out in the wilderness and in the snow and everything that led up to that fight with the Russian made that the perfect montage. But this one is pretty freaking damn close. They're not in the snow, because, California, but what they do, oh man, it was the exact thing you needed to get Adonis ready for this fight. And the really cool thing that you kind of see through the whole movie is the leveling up of Adonis physically. At the beginning of the movie, he's already bigger than he was in Creed 1. But by the time you get to the ultimate fight, he is a different kind of cut and different kind of strong. And you feel like he's got a real legit shot. And I loved it. It was great. And then the finale fight is so well executed. The choreography is great. The acting between Michael B. Jordan and Florian Munteanu, who plays Victor Drago, Ivan's son, is phenomenal. Their on-screen chemistry is really, really good, considering they don't say or interact too much with each other other than throwing fists. But it all is really good. But as I mentioned, before, I think Ryan Coogler would have elevated to the place that it needed to be. But that all said, this ultimately wraps up into a really, really solid entry into the Creed universe and certainly the overall Rocky universe. I thought it really, really performed exceptionally well in most places. And when you add in the acting, I mean, you walk away with a really, really good movie. Maybe not quite as good as Creed for me, but oh god, is Michael B. Jordan so freaking good. He might be better than he was in the first Creed, with what he has going on. I mean, like I said, they throw a lot on him. I think Michael B. Jordan does a stellar job of carrying all of this and carrying this movie. I mean, if you don't walk out of here going, Michael B. Jordan is a superstar, you're crazy. The man has everything you want in a superstar, and for someone who wasn't a trained actor, holy crap, man, where he's come over the years and the stuff he can do. There's a scene in the first act with him and Rock. Woo! It's so good. And like I said, the choreography and the physicality of the fighting in this movie, man, you feel the power of Victor Drago and you feel the pain that Michael B. Jordan is going through in some of the fighting because of what he is expressing in his face and his determination and his grit and his energy. It's just all perfect. I love Michael B. Jordan in this movie. Sly, I mean, what's there to say, man? The man's been playing Rocky for 40 years. He doesn't need a script. He could just walk in there and be Rocky and say all the things that he needs to say, but it's always wonderful to see Sly back in the Rocky Balboa character. He does it so well. And although his story isn't quite as intense as Creed 1, he has wonderful moments with Michael B. Jordan. He does have an internal story that leads to something wonderful at the end of the movie. And I loved everything Sly was doing. Tessa Thompson is fantastic, and I love that we didn't lose her in this movie, or her and Adonis's relationship. If anything, it is driven up to a place that it hasn't been before, and their chemistry on screen is so good. I mean, Michael B. Jordan's chemistry with everybody in this movie is so good, but specifically with Sly and Tessa. It's the things that make the slower parts of the movie not tough to get through, because you're just in awe of what's going on screen between all these characters, and the performances that they're delivering are really, really impactful and really solid. Tessa Thompson's certainly one of those. I love when she plays Bianca. Felicia Rashad, I love seeing her always. She is the perfect mom. She has a scene with Adonis that's heartbreaking, but like it's the perfect tough love mother move. Like, she's excited about something, and then when she finds out the real big news that Adonis wants to tell her, the way she shifts her emotion and kind of internalizes stuff is brilliant. I mean, she's a pro. The only thing for her Marianne Creed that I thought was missing was maybe a slightly larger scene with Sly's Rocky. 30 years that these two haven't really talked to each other. I thought they deserved a little bit bigger of a scene than what they were given, but loved Felicia Rashad. She was awesome. And that brings us to our two Russians, Ivan Drago and Victor Drago. And we'll start with Victor, played by Florian Munteanu. Like I said, his chemistry on screen with Michael B. Jordan is great, despite the fact that they say very little to each other. And Florian says very little in general in this movie, but goodness me, is he terrifying. I mean, he's so huge. But on top of that, all of this stuff and the story between these two, I think, these two story is the best stuff in the movie, I think. What they do with Ivan and Victor is tremendous, and the way Florian is able to take everything that's happening in this story, lock it down inside, and just express everything emotionally through his face was wonderful. And, the guy who's playing his pops does it even better. This is great stuff from Dolph Lundgren, especially as Ivan Drago. I thought he was a way better Ivan Drago in this movie than he was in Rocky IV, as far as what he was doing from an acting standpoint, right? Rocky IV, he's just a machine. Get out there, look huge, fight hard, get anger, like that Russian anger, nail it, cool. But what everyone always seems to forget, right, with Rocky IV, because it seems to end on such a positive note, right? Like, Rocky stops the Cold War, Russia cheers for Rocky, it's feel good, everybody's happy. There's legit fallout for Ivan Drago that we never get to see on screen. And now you fast forward this 30 years, and what Dolph Lundgren is doing emotionally in his face and in what he's internalized in their overall story, it's tremendous acting from him. And also, very few lines. But the stuff that he does deliver through the lines, he has a scene with Rock that's amazing. He's got multiple great scenes with Florian, and their overall relationship is wonderful. I thought it was the best stuff in the movie when we were doing Ivan and Victor. And like I said, there's an amazing montage sequence, in this movie. And there's that back and forth between Michael B. Jordan and Florian Munteanu's Victor. Some of the training stuff in this movie is insane on both sides, but some of the stuff that this kid Florian does, holy cow, man. I mean, it's no shock that he's as big as he is. And that's the other thing, too. The power is really delivered from the sound to the acting to you really sense how powerful his punches are, that, like, every time he hits Michael B. Jordan in the movie, you literally go, like, you honestly think something might be broken. And he just delivers that really, really well. And the sound editing in this movie is phenomenal. I went and saw it in Dolby Digital at AMC. The theater is shaking when Victor throws punches, man. It's crazy. And it was a wonderful way to experience the movie because it really did. Sound editing I thought was great. So look, man, overall... Oh, wait. No, not overall. Russell Hornsby. Almost forgot him. He has a very, very small role to play in this. He's the promoter. But he delivers it perfectly, man. You hate him. And he has so little to do, and you absolutely just hate him because of certain things that he does. And he carries himself the perfect way for a promoter, right? The guy that nobody likes, but gets you the event that you want to see. And that's what we get here. Albeit a little bit shy of where I wanted it to go, but that little bit of disappointment that I felt at the end of this movie, fails in comparison to the overall picture. It is a really, really solid movie. It is a 2 thumbs up kind of a movie. I really, really enjoyed Creed 2. I am ecstatic for Creed 3. I think what they set up by the end of this movie sets up things for them to tackle in Creed 3 that could just put a perfect cap on this trilogy. And if you're going to put a perfect cap on this trilogy, Ryan Coogler, please come back. Like I said, I loved what Stephen Caple Jr. did, but it was missing something, and that something is Ryan Coogler. Pull a JJ, come back for Creed 3, and we might have one of the best Rocky Universe movies ever. So that's it, man. That's all the C-Man's got to say about Creed 2. I really dug this one. It just fell a little short of the finish line. So that's it. All I got to say. Now it's your turn, man. Are you excited for Creed 2? Are you pumped to go see this? Have I enticed you to want to go see this? And if you have seen Creed 2 already, if you were out at the theater last night with me or out today or any point during Thanksgiving, what did you think, man? Did you like Creed 2? Was it better than the first Creed? Did you think that, it reached the peaks that it needed to, or did it fall a little short? What performances did you like? Let me know everything you're thinking. Try to keep it spoiler-free or mark it as such down below in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe and little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. For the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I'm going to go hit the punching bag, man, after all this boxing talk. I am the C-Man, and I am signing off. Peace! Hey, you like to see man's videos? Well, why don't you click on this one and hit that subscribe button there? Yeah.